Shane here, about to make it happen with Natalie. So Natalie and I have been working together now for some time, and it's interesting because I actually spotted her at an event one day. I was talking to one of my team members, and I said she needs to come to the event. I had no idea, but she had already signed up for the event, and she was actually coming to the event. And it was like fate. So long story short, we went to that event. I identified some things I wanted to work with her on, and we spoke about it afterwards, and we started working. We went to another event that she was actually able to speak at, that she did very, very well in. And ultimately, over the course of time, life happens, right? I went back down to South Florida. She lives in New Jersey. She had a huge internship at Morgan Stanley when I first met her at the age of 21. And by 20, at 20 years old, she was already on her first internship in Morgan Stanley on Wall Street, only to follow that up, because she's the one-upper that she is, to the West Wing of the White House for an internship there, which was pretty impressive. So by the time she was 22 years old, she had already had 2 internships, one of which being on Wall Street and one being in the West Wing of the White House, addressing bipartisan issues such as the opioid crisis, right?
Indeed.
So when I first met you, you were somewhat of a different place in your life, right? You were going to finish up your degree. You had your internship with the White House, and you wanted to work on Wall Street in the finance business. You were in a relationship with somebody that was, in my opinion, toxic. I think you'd agree. And that kind of brought you to a bad place.
So I started pageants about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and I wanted to get in really good shape. So I seeked out this guy on my campus who was like really big. And I was like, you know what? I need some help in the gym. And we had some mutual friends. So we kind of linked up, and long story short, he basically led me to have an eating disorder. I would starve myself. And I remember one day, it was like the lowest point of my life. I looked at a bag of spinach and said, oh my God, there's too many calories in it. I would restrict myself beyond belief. If we went out to dinner, I wasn't allowed to eat that day until we went out to eat. I weighed all my food. I counted calories beyond extent. I was told that I had fat thighs. And so I constantly was worried about my self-image. And finally, that relationship ended in last July. So I started my internship a few months later. And because of that period of restricting led to a serious eating disorder. So this year, after reaching out to some therapists, trying to seek the help I could get, that didn't help. So I was going to enter an inpatient eating disorder clinic on a Friday. And the same week on a Wednesday, I got a call from Sir Shane asking me to compete at World's Perfect. And I was like, absolutely not. I was so against it. I'd gained weight. I wasn't myself. I was in a really dark place. And I just felt that I needed to go away to get help. But I was like, you know what? It's kind of funny how timing aligned. So I took it as a sign, and I ended up flying out to Florida, busting my booty in the gym, eating super clean, seeking the help that I needed mentally. And here I am.
Well, let's take a step back, because initially when you flew down to Florida, it was just for a photo shoot to visit.
Yeah.
And she had another trip planned. And I just, when I see something in someone, I do my best to try to allow them to see it as well. And at that point, you were about to fly to California to visit a friend. And I just knew it was bad timing. I knew about the eating disorder. There was a pandemic going on. There's a lot of stuff happening. But more importantly for me is that I knew about the eating disorder. And I knew that there was a very easy chance that since you didn't go to the rehab facility, that something bad could happen on that trip. So I simply presented you some information. I allowed you to make that decision. And she did. She actually decided to stay in South Florida. And we spoke. And we spoke about nutrition. And it was no longer about what is the strictest possible diet I can have. It was more so, what is the healthiest diet I can have? And then we started talking about physical fitness. We started working with on our team. We do have nutritionists and personal trainers. I think it's a very, very important part of just life in general.
Mentally, physically.
I mean, your results have been astronomical, right? Eating healthy, amazing. She had her first Krispy Kreme in about 2 months today, which we're very excited about.
Even just mentally, I've been so much more positive, happier.
Let's talk about that for a minute. You talk about that, the positivity. When you first came down, it was very dull. It was very negative. And everything we spoke about, I mean, you were really able to find something negative with everything. It didn't matter what topic we were saying. And now I don't think you could find something negative if I asked you to. It's constant smiles, it's constant happiness. It's constantly looking forward to what I'm going to do. You're now back on path to what you really wanted, which is finance.
Yeah.
We started, just taking additional steps every day, those 8 easy, simple steps, and following that path. And now you started exploring now the, Wall Street again, dude. Every day researching stocks, giving me advice and opinions, and we talk about it. Sometimes I'll throw some money at it to see if it works out or not. Sometimes she'll throw a few bucks at it, right? So, you had a very big distraction and obstacle in your life, and we broke through that. Tell me, right now, somebody's thinking, well, should I do this? Is this right for me? Why do you feel somebody should work with me?
I was really skeptical at first because I felt like I was just really alone. And the only help I could really get was through enlist going away to an inpatient clinic. But I feel like everything happens for a reason. And Shane called me that day, and it literally, it transformed my life. I feel like had he not called, I don't know where I'd be today. I don't know mentally, physically, emotionally, how stable I would be. Who knows if the clinic would have even helped. And he undoubtedly transformed the way that I think. I have such a more positive outlook. I wake up happy. I feel stronger mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I undoubtedly owe that to Shane and Sabrina.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Right now, somebody's thinking about moving forward. They're thinking, is this really for me? And again, it comes down to 8 simple, easy steps and identifying what we need to change and what we want to change, identifying obstacles and how to get around those obstacles, setting new goals, daily, simple daily goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell somebody right now that was debating, is this for me?
Shane's like I said earlier, a third dad to me and someone I go to for advice. I can always rely on him to pick up the phone whenever it is, whatever time it is, to assist me in any matter that I need, and depending on the situation, of course I would recommend Shane to be that person.
What is the first thing we did? We identified what we wanted to change, and then what we needed to change, and then get that to happen, right? Then we identified the obstacles, right? And then we decided how can we get through or around those obstacles. And then we set very specific goals. Those goals became habits. Those habits are now your new way of life.
Indeed.
So, it really was that simple. And that's why it's so important for me now to get this out to people where it's not, maybe I can't work with you directly one-on-one every single day, but I can set the foundation for them to begin.
If he can help me get out of an eating disorder, then the guy can work wonders.
You had an internship in the White House. I'm very proud that you did that, right? Because of all the controversy around politics, does that take away from how you feel about that internship?
No, not at all. I would have taken that internship no matter who the administration was. And unfortunately, the political climate is very toxic right now. But as a daughter of 2 Polish immigrants, I've always wanted to give back to our country. And I thought about joining the army, but I don't really have the muscles for that. So I figured I'd use my brain. So I applied and I got in, and I got to work for Kellyanne Conway, and again, work on some of the biggest issues facing our country. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
What's the worst thing that's ever happened to you?
The worst thing that's ever happened? I guess we could rewind to that whole depression stage when I tried to kill myself. I was at a really dark place in my life. I didn't want to live, but I also wanted my parents to kind of wake up and notice that there was something wrong.
One of the things that we speak about often when having parents who are immigrants, that you have to go through that cultural differences, is trying to understand, right? Understanding your parents, and that in their mind, they're doing what's best. They want what's best, but they grew up very, very differently in a very different environment. And, now that, we've had this conversation more than once, how's your relationship now with your parents? Has it gotten any better?
Yeah. Before I was in Florida, I would argue with my mom every day, and we weren't even in the house at the same time. And we would just constantly argue, and very negative outlook on everything, and we just would not get along. But being away does make me appreciate her so much more, because obviously she loves me and everything she does is for me. All the hard work she does. She leaves our house at 3 p.m. and comes home at 3 a.m. 6 days a week. And it's just shown me that I may take it for granted. And even though she was grown up in a different atmosphere, in a different light, it's not her fault. And I just learned to really appreciate everything she's done for me.
These days, when you have so many influences, both negative and positive, especially the negativity, it's very easy to say, I'm blocking you on Facebook, you're done on Instagram, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. But you're never going to affect change if you're not open-minded to understand how someone else feels. I feel you don't necessarily have to agree with someone in order to understand how they feel. And a lot of times you'll come to me and say, hey, Shay, my mom said this, like, how do I respond? And then I would just give you an understanding and positive approach. And that conversation went a whole different direction than where it would have been a year ago, right? So do you feel that the 8 little things that we've worked on has helped your relationship with your mom?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would go days or homes a week without talking to my own mother. And now I FaceTime her every single day. And yeah, we may not agree on everything, but I've learned to kind of just simmer down and listen to her perspective or provide more detail to something that she may not agree with. And the opposite, if she may not agree with something that I say, vice versa.
So look, at the end of the day, these 8 easy, simple steps that I'm going to give you for free can really apply to so many different things in your life. It's not just about becoming an entrepreneur or making all this money. It might be something as simple as fixing a relationship within your family, maybe a friend, maybe it's identifying something you need to remove, maybe just understanding how to accept them for who they are. So click on the link in the bio, get these 8 simple steps for free, and let's make that change. Make it happen.